recording. Vamos a empezar con la grabación. Y
Marilyn,
sí,
before maybe if you have a minute here, I wasn't at last week's class, but I did watch the video of it, and I really like the short answer thing, El Rojo or whatever. But I have a question about that, maybe just to, if I could now, just to sort of confess in the past.
Claro.
Can you use that also with like numbers, like the first, the second, el primero, el segundo, or no?
The el or la or los or las, that question, that issue?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you absolutely can. Okay, last week, we'll start off with a good question. And it's always good that you come with these questions because it's impossible for me to anticipate how many of those questions may pop up, but they're all valid and all good. Okay, last week we had a little opener with an easy to do thing of, pardon, you can just take an adjective and use el, la, los, or las in front of the adjective to say the, por ejemplo, the blue one. See, ¿cuál es la pluma que quieres? Which one is the pen that you want? La azul, the blue one, right? Instead of saying la pluma azul, you can just say la azul. Okay, so tying back into that, if we don't have an adjective like grande or azul or pequeño, and lo que sea, whatever it might be, can we use that with numbers and just say the first one, the second one, the third one? Sí, se puede. Yes, you can. So you just have to keep in mind, is the thing I'm describing as the first one, what gender does it fall into? Because you should obey that rule. So you're talking about people in line. Yeah. Who's the first one? And somebody may look at you and just by your gender, eres el primero, you're the first one. They may, if you're a male and you're the first one in line, tú eres el primero, you're the first one today. They may use that. Or, hay muchas personas aquí. ¿Quién es la primera persona? ¿Quién es la primera? Who's the first one? Yeah. Clientes would not be feminine. Well, it could be feminine, la cliente or el cliente, but if you're talking about a group of customers, it's typically going to be a mixed bag of both males and females, which means it's going to go into the masculine gender because that's what Spanish does. Miguel es el tercero. Miguel is the third one, right? Juanita es la segunda. Juanita is the second one. Right. We can use those with numbers, not just adjectives. Absolutamente. Qué buena pregunta. What a good question. You guys always come up with very, very good ones. Eso me gusta. And Marcos, we're going to tackle your other question when we come to the stem changing part as well. I did see that. I saw it a little late in the game, but I did see it. And I was scrambling last minute to find the absolute shortest answer to that, which I did. But I had to scroll around a little bit to find the absolute shortest answer. Okay. ¿Qué vamos a hacer? What are we going to do? Hopefully we'll get to a new video at the end of class, but today, hoy vamos a practicar y repasar. We're going to review. For some of you who are brand new, this will be a brand new concept, the concept of what is a stem changing verb. For others of you, it is a review, but it is very, very worthy of a review because it is a huge category of verbs.
I want to add, it was like a really good review, not like covered every verb, but for me, it really clarified. I hope I'm not just rambling here, but it really clarified or reminded me that if you forget the you plural for Spain, that really the only ones that don't change are nos.
Exacto, exactly right. Yeah. If you're not operating in the Spain world, really all you got to remember is nosotros just goes back to the whole full original stem and does not use a stem change. And you know what? It's also helpful to know a lot of times, this is one of those things where people say, can I get a list? Right? Can I get a list of the verbs that do that? And well, yeah, you can, but it will never be a perfect list because it would be it would be impossible for me to list every stem changing verb. That would be like, tear out about, I don't know, 30% of the verbs you find in a dictionary. Oh, no, that's that's too big. And B, the other issue is these are things you have to learn in small bites, in small amounts. Okay, so what you really need to do is start to acquire verbs, start to notice stem changing verbs. Which ones are the most common ones you're likely to hear as a beginner speaker, as a tourist, as a traveler, as somebody who's just chit-chatting about regular stuff. There are certain verbs, I'm probably going to show you or send you a link to one website, and they make this a much more complex issue. So in other words, some of those verbs are verbs you're not likely to hear as often in everyday conversation. It's okay to know in the back of your gray matter of your brain, but if you're not going to use it a lot, it's not helpful to spend your time on those kind of verbs. So we want to spend it on the high frequency, frequently used, often used kind of verbs. And a lot of times you're going to start to notice somebody may use a stem changing verb, and you'll start, if you get very good, this is a good listening comprehension thing to kind of forewarn yourself. A lot of times you'll hear people using a verb, and it may be kind of a new verb, and a verb you can even guess what it means from the context. And when you start to hear that ue sound, ue, you've got a UE. You've got a UE in the middle of it. And pretty often you could say, oh, there's a new stem changing verb that I hadn't thought about. So you can even, once you get pretty good at it, start to listen for those kinds of verbs as they pop up. And I think what I'd hope to have, I'm previewing here. Yeah, we're gonna show you how that kind of information may pop up with something you have heard, but you may not have thought about before as, oh, it's a stem changer. So, okay. We're going to spend a lot of time on stem changing verbs. We're also going to spend our opening segment on the little questions we had. So I'm going to share with you the 2 slides, if you like to bring up slides, that you will need. Bien, the 2 things that you will need are going to be these. So if you like to bring up a slide, or if you printed stuff out, if you're that person that needs to print it out and you need to go find that piece of paper, this will preview it so you can collect that information. Aquí, preguntas de vivir solo o vivir sola, living alone. These were our questions here. We're going to start with these. Y hay solamente 5 preguntas. There are only 5 questions here. And I think because we're a small group today, we're not going to go off into smaller groups. We'll just, do this all collectively together. So, esto, y esto, these, which are the end parts. I think I had told you in our notes, look for the colored slides at the end of the slide presentation set. These are our practices with stem changers here, and it's 13 through 16 on that slide set. But You know, if you just look for the big color blocks, that'll be good enough to point you in the right direction. So, the questions we're looking at first, vivir solo o vivir sola, living alone. These have to do with that little video that she had last week that we gave you about living by yourself, as opposed to living in a family setting or with your partner or lo que sea, whatever. We're not going to review that video now, but we are going to take a look at the questions, and we're going to keep this for the very, very big group. I'm going to make this, voy a engrandecer. I'm going to make it bigger so we can read it a little bit more easily. Since we're not going into breakout rooms, smaller ones, at least not yet. I think we can do this all together. Now, I may not see all of you as I put this up on share screen. So if you raise a hand, I may not see you. So shout out when needed. Conversación basada en el video. El video que habla de vivir solo o vivir sola o no, or maybe not, living alone. ¿Vives solo o vives sola o no?
Hago. Yo no vivo sola, vivo con otra persona, mi esposo.
Bien, perfecto. Vivo con mi esposo. I live with my husband. Y aquí tenemos cuántas personas viven contigo. Bien, más. Y se puede decir, vivo con mi esposo. I live with my husband. Vivo con mi pareja. I live with my partner. Pareja happens to be a feminine word. So even if you're talking about a husband, it's okay to say, con mi pareja. It's okay, even if you're talking about a male person. Just like persona is a feminine word, pareja is a feminine word. So, okay, bien. ¿Alguien más? Somebody else?
Una pregunta.
Sí, sí.
Is it no vivo solo or no me vivo solo?
No vivo solo. If you're a man. If you're a woman, no vivo sola. Bien. Okay. Bueno, ¿alguien más? Anybody else for that one? ¿No? ¿Sí? Bueno, okay. Yo no vivo sola. Yo no vivo sola. Hay 4 personas, hay 5 mascotas en mi casa. Vivo, bueno, entonces, 3 personas viven conmigo. 3 personas viven conmigo. Vivo con mi esposo, con 2 hijos adultos que todavía viven con nosotros. No tengo el nido vacío. I don't have an empty nest. My husband just said last week, when are we ever going to get to be in an empty nest? No sé. Vivo con 2 hijos adultos y vivo con 5 mascotas. Es
5.
5. Sí, 5. Ok. Porque la primera gata vino a nuestra casa. The first cat came to our house y ella estaba embarazada. She was pregnant. Así que, This is what happens when in the 4th grade, your daughter comes home with, can we keep it? Ok. Y ahora tengo 5. Ok. Pero es una larga historia. Ok, a ver. Bueno, la segunda pregunta. ¿Tienes mascotas? ¿Tienen ustedes mascotas?
No tenemos mascotas. Hace muchos años, cuando nuestra hija era joven, tenemos un perro.
Bien, sí. Vale, bueno. ¿Algo más?
Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
No, go ahead, Linda.
This a lot of words in here I can't say. Tenemos tres mascotas que viven con nosotros. Me gusta mucho vivir con mascotas. I can't say this word.
Give it a try.
Limpiar, to clean. Limpiar.
Oh, limpiar.
Sí, limpiar con muy difícil para mí con mascotas. Con mis mascotas.
Limpiar para mí, and we would probably say for me first, so we lead off with that one. Para mí, limpiar es muy difícil. For me, cleaning is very difficult. And there it's okay to use limpiar as just limpiar, because you're talking of limpiar as the action of cleaning, right?
Right.
Para mí, limpiar es muy difícil, ¿sí? Porque tenemos en la pregunta, ¿qué te gusta de vivir con mascotas y qué es difícil cuando vives con mascotas? What's hard when you live with pets? Y sí, limpiar, sí, con mascotas. Limpiar es una tarea sin fin. Cleaning is an endless job, an endless task. Limpiar es una tarea sin fin, with no end, con mascotas. Tienen el pelo, tienen, sí, vomitan de vez en cuando, tienen problemas gástricos y sí, tenemos que limpiar mucho. Bueno, ¿qué más?
No tengo mascotas que viven conmigo porque es difícil ir y venir cuando se tiene mascotas.
Bien. Es difícil viajar, es difícil salir por muchas horas cuando tienes mascotas. ¡Qué buen punto! Sí, cuando tenemos mascotas, tenemos que estar en casa con más frecuencia, ¿sí? ¿Verdad? A veces es difícil. Si tú eres una persona y te gusta viajar mucho, te gusta salir a Flagstaff, salir a Tucson, ¿sí? Salir por el fin de semana en unas vacaciones cortas, es difícil salir y viajar mucho con mascotas. Las mascotas necesitan atención, necesitan mucho cuidado, ¿no? Es así, es un hecho, it's a fact. A veces, si una persona vive en apartamento, hay apartamentos, existen apartamentos que no permiten mascotas, ¿verdad? ¿Y por qué no? Porque son sucias, they're dirty. A veces, sí, es difícil. Entonces, si vives en un apartamento, por las reglas, on account of the rules, o por el espacio, or on account of the space, es difícil tener mascotas. Buen punto. Ok. Vale. Siguiente. Moving on. Next. Siguiente. Siguiente. Tres. ¿Cuál es lo mejor? And notice this is the way we don't say el mejor. We say lo mejor because this means the best thing, not the best one. This is a subtle difference, but just the best thing. And this word lo is actually considered not a masculine word. It looks like a masculine word, but it's being used in a neutral sense here. Lo mejor just talks about an abstract situation. The best thing. In the most general of terms. So we phrase that as lo mejor, always. ¿Cuál es lo mejor de vivir solo? Por ejemplo, lo mejor de vivir solo es que no tienes que limpiar mucho. The best thing about living alone is you don't have to clean up a lot. Que no tienes que limpiar mucho. Okay. Otras ideas. Lo mejor de vivir solo es, the best thing about living alone is.
Lo mejor de vivir solo es que no tengo ruido para leer.
Okay, bien.
Ruido, correct?
Perdón.
No ruido, no noise.
Ruido.
Ruido.
Ruido. We just want to, you got the right word. We want to tweak our pronunciation a little bit. Ruido.
Ruido. Sí.
No hay ruido. Perfecto. Sí. Lo mejor de vivir solo es que no hay mucho ruido. No hay, no tengo mucho ruido. No existe. It doesn't exist. No existe mucho ruido. But the easiest way is no hay mucho ruido. Perfecto. Bien. Otra idea.
Lo mejor de vivir solo es puedo ver lo que quiero en la televisión.
Ah, que puedo ver and there will be lo que quiera, but don't worry about that. Sí. Lo que quiera, whatever I may want. Puedo ver, I can see lo que quiera, whatever I may want en la tele. Ay, sí, bien. Otra idea.
Why quiera versus quiero?
Why quiera versus quiero? Because what you mean to say is whatever I may want. And I don't know at this moment what I may or may not want. So what I want changes to something, whatever it might be, right? If we can insert the idea of whatever I might want, because as it's highly changeable and unknown at the time, and that's really the key. What I want right now or at any indefinite moment is unknown. It switches to an oddball verb, which is quiera, with an a at the end, which sounds wrong, but is actually right. That's a subjunctive. Whatever I may want is something that's hypothetical and unknown at this moment. Yeah. Whatever I may want at 5 o'clock might be different from whatever I may want at 8 o'clock. And it's therefore non-existent right now. So it'll become quiera.
Thank you.
If people say to you, pick whichever thing you want, so I'll give you an example of when you might hear this, and just learn this as the chunk that the word is quiera, or maybe quieras. Somebody asks you a question, and they say, or they, you're talking about what you want to do. Lo que quieras, whatever you might want. If you hear lo que quieras, they're asking whatever you might want, meaning they don't know what you want. It might be vague now. And it's that idea of might. Okay. Bien.
I had kind of the same idea as Carrie, but I chose some different verbs. Would this work also? That lo mejor de vivir solo es puedo decidir lo que ver en la tele.
Bien. Puedo decidir lo que veo en la tele. I can decide what I see or I want to see on the TV. Bien. Bien. lo mejor de vivir solo es que puedo cocinar lo que quiera. I can cook whatever I want. ¿Sí? Lo mejor de vivir solo es que yo puedo tomar decisiones sola. I can make decisions on my own. ¿Sí? Bien. En español se dice make decisions es tomar decisiones. Yo puedo tomar decisiones, ¿sí? Sola. I can make decisions on my own. Bien. Ok. Siguiente. ¿Por qué es difícil tener invitados en tu casa? This refers to when we're not alone, when we got not the people we live with normally, but people who are visiting for a short while. ¿Por qué es difícil tener invitados en tu casa? And by that, I just don't mean people for dinner, but, you know, people staying with you. ¿Por qué es difícil tener invitados en tu casa?
Es difícil invito a invitados en mi casa porque yo no sé qué cocinar para ellos todos los días.
No, sí, no sé qué debo cocinar, no sé qué puedo cocinar todos los días. Sí, es difícil planear un menú, planear todas las comidas de la semana o todas las comidas del día. Bueno, ¿qué más? Porque es difícil. A veces es difícil tener invitados porque hay menos espacio en mi casa. Hay menos espacio. There's less space, ¿sí? En mi casa. Otras ideas. ¿No? Nada. Solamente comida, only food. Ok. Es difícil tener invitados también porque hay que limpiar la casa, hay que compartir, you've got to share, hay que compartir el espacio así. Ok, a ver, ¿qué te gusta hacer? What do you like to do? ¿Qué te gusta hacer cuando tienes invitados en tu casa? ¿Qué te gusta hacer cuando tienes invitados en tu casa?
Me gusta cenar y conversar con mis invitados.
Me gusta conversar, sí, me gusta cenar con mis invitados, bien, bien. ¿Qué más? And you'll notice this does not require you to conjugate a second verb because we've just got the me gusta. Me gusta ir a restaurantes nuevos cuando tengo invitados. Y a veces me gusta visitar lugares turísticos cuando tengo invitados. Me gusta visitar lugares turísticos. I like to visit tourist kind of places, ¿sí? Como por ejemplo el zoológico o parques especiales o museos como el Museo de Arte en Phoenix. Me gusta visitar el Museo de Arte. en Phoenix cuando tengo invitados, así. ¿Algo más o no? Nada de eso? Nothing else with that? Okay. Bien. Vale. Bueno. Adelante, adelante. Moving on. Vamos a cambiar de tema. We're going to change our theme a little bit. We're going to dive into this whole stem changing bit. And I'm going to show you a website that I am going to only show you bits and pieces of, but I will share the link with the whole thing with you in our email after class so that you can kind of peruse this at your leisure, but we're only going to look at bits and pieces of it today, just as a warm-up for what we're going to do. Okay, so the thing to remember about stem changers is that, are they irregular? Well, I guess they kind of are irregular, but the point with stem changers is that the endings we use to put them into the yo form, the tú form, the él, ella, usted form, the nosotros form, the ellos, ellas, ustedes forms, the conjugations are no different than what you're accustomed to, right? You're merely looking at, is it an AR verb, is it an ER verb, or is it an IR verb? But there are stem changing verbs that fall into all those categories of AR, ER, and IR. So they will use the regular type endings. It's just that internal vowel, the vowel that is right next door to the AR of the infinitive, or right next door to the ER of the infinitive, or right next door to the IR of the infinitive. Those little vowels are the things that do a morphing, a changing. And it's super helpful for most English speakers to think of these as shoe verbs or boot verbs. And here we've got them as a boot, because this is where these are the types, these are the categories of conjugations where that vowel will split off into something that looks different from the original infinitive, right? So an E to IE stem change will look like this as a review before we dig in deep. And that is an E might split off into a double vowel of IE. And as Marcos told us, the easiest thing to remember is that nosotros goes back to the original vowel that exists in the infinitive, but everything else will get an IE. So perder, which means to lose, becomes pierdo, pierdes, pierde, pierden. But nosotros gets perdemos. If you're in Spain, it is important to know this vosotros, but we don't practice vosotros actively because that is only a Spain type verb, right? So perdéis. It is regular for that. So this is an example of an E to IE stem change. Perder is P-E-R, but it becomes P-I-E-R. And we have to make sure that we pronounce all of those sounds so that people understand that verb. Pierdo, pierdes. Okay, bien. And this website gives you a whole bunch of verbs that happen to be stem changers, and E to IE is a big category. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these, but ejemplo, for example, you know what? Mentir, to lie. Okay, nice to know that that's an E to IE stem change, miento, but if that's not a verb that you actually actively use a lot, and probably it's not, you know, it might be good to know that when you're listening to a story that they're telling and they say that somebody lied to somebody else, but you may not need it in your active vocabulary, right? Similarly, ascender, to go up, has an easier alternative verb, subir. Subir is not a stem changer. And most people in everyday chit chat are more commonly going to use subir, not ascender. So I would say for that verb, ascender, haciendo, is not something you're going to hear a lot in everyday conversation. It's not something you necessarily want to make yourself use as an active vocabulary word, but cerrar, things closing, stores closing, that is a good active vocabulary verb. Despertarse, to wake up, is super good active vocabulary word because people talk about when they're going to wake up, right? Empezar, for darn sure, to begin, is super frequent in conversation because you may talk about when somebody is starting an activity or when a concert starts, when a show is starting, right? When a program is starting. So look at not just the boot, but which of these verbs are most useful to me? Yeah. And I can guarantee you that ascender is not something you need to plug into your everyday vocabulary, but this does give you a great big long list. Yeah. Recomendar, another good one from that list. Okay. O to UE is another type of stem change. And in the big picture of the boot, that's how it looks. This is an example of what is that? This has mistakes. Maybe I won't change. This should be volar. This already has a mistake. I think I may rethink whether I send this to you or else just tell you this is wrong. Vuelo, I'm flying. Volar is to fly. And volar goes into a UE. Vuelo, I'm flying. Vuelo a las 3, I'm flying at 3. If, you're leaving on your plane at 3, but it should be vuelas. Vuelas, it should be an AS. Yeah, this is kind of a bad mistake. Vuela, right? Vuelan, and then volamos. So, wow, that's a terrible error. I should report an error to their website. Okay. O to UE, stem changes like E to IE are quite common. There are quite a lot of them. It's a big category of verbs, and there's nothing in particular to tell you ahead of time. Hello, I'm a stem changing verb. You just have to know. Here's one of the most common O to UE stem changers that you're going to use super frequently. You absolutely need to know this verb poder to be able to. This is what we talk about, or what we use when we express the idea of can, right? I can't speak Spanish. Boy, I can't speak Italian. Yeah. Oh, I can leave this afternoon, but I can't get out this morning. All right. Can is a verb that we universally use a ton of times in our day. So if you learn no other O to UE stem changer, poder is a must learn verb. Okay. Puedo, puedes, puede, pueden, because it's an ER verb, but we go back to the O of poder for podemos. Okay. And here they give you a helpful list of a whole bunch of verbs. Now, some websites will put this verb jugar in a separate category of U to UE. I don't think that's particularly helpful for this reason. It is the only verb that's got a UE stem change that's a U to UE. So why not just learn the verb jugar and learn that jugar, to play a game, is this kind of verb, even though it's not an O in jugar, it's not jugar, it's jugar. Jugar means to play when it's talking about playing a game, okay, or playing a sport like soccer, tennis, lo que sea, whatever it might be. And here are a whole bunch of super helpful and frequent verbs Boy, and as I'm looking here, I'm not finding anything really that is all that infrequent. I want to point out so that you know the boo-boo with their boot, the mistake. Here they list volar. Volar, you can see, is an AR verb. So, yeah, that boot is wrong. Vuelas with an AS at the end. Vuela, vuelan. Okay. And notice that there is not a whole lot of difference in spelling between volar and volver. I want to point this out because sometimes this happens in Spanish, and sometimes these kinds of issues actually happen a lot in English. The way these two separate verbs are spelled is not that far off. It's just a spelling thing. Okay, but volar is an AR verb, and it means to fly. And volver, VOLVER, has an extra V, and it's an ER verb. It's a separate verb. But these verbs are kind of close together. I think that's why the people who created this website, I think they were confusing. And maybe they meant to put, well, I don't know which they meant, but it's a mistake nonetheless. But do notice that sometimes we might get verbs that just because of the way they're spelled in the infinitive, they're kind of close together. So you do have to listen closely for those sounds. Volver has an extra V in it, volver. So return, it also means come back, right? And it's return as in coming back to a place, a person coming back to a place. So vuelvo, vuelves, vuelve, vuelven, volvemos. Okay. Bien. Don't worry about this oler verb too much. This means to smell. It is a UE stem change, but it gets an extra spelling thing. This is not for you right now an active vocabulary verb that you need to say, wow, I'll use this a bunch. This is the verb we would use if you say, wow, it really smells good in here. What are you cooking? Right? Or, oh, this rose smells really good. This is the verb we use, huele. La rosa suele fantástico. Right? The rose smells great. Okay. And here is our smaller category of the three categories of stem changers. The smaller one is the E to I. There are fewer verbs that fall into this category. O to UE is a very vast, very large number of verbs, and E to IE is a very vast and large number of verbs. But sometimes we get an E that changes into an I, and this is a smaller category of verbs. And I will say, if you study Spanish further into the future, and into different tenses beyond present tense, E to I stem changers always do something weird in various types of tenses. So kids who study Spanish in high school and college wind up not liking this category very well because it often does odd things. But we'll look at only the easy stuff it does, which is the E to I stem change. So pedir, to order something, like an article from Amazon or a dish at a restaurant, pedir, or to ask somebody to do something, to ask for something, is an E to I. It's pido, pides, pide, piden. But then we go back to pedir and we insert the e sound of pedir for the nosotros, pedimos. Okay. Bien. And here are a bunch of verbs. Now, you know what? Again, take it with a grain of salt. Do you need to memorize this verb gemir, to moan, to groan? Are you going to use that a lot in conversation? No, probably not. So you want to look at verbs that you will wind up using a lot, like repetir. You ask somebody to repeat something because they spoke too quickly, too fast for you. You need that verb, right? repites. Okay, so repites. Bien. That is a frequently verb used. Pedir is a frequently used verb. Seguir, actually, to follow, continue, because we use that for directions, you know. That is frequently used. Servir is frequently used. You're going to hear it in the homework video this week. So be on the lookout for the homework video where you're going to hear that verb servir. And, you know, vestirse is pretty frequently used. If you cook a lot, only if you cook a lot, that medir may be used a lot. Yeah. Medir may be used a lot if you have people doing repairs in your house, or if you're cooking, things where you do measuring. But other than that, you may not need it as much. So, you know, these lists are always son flexibles. They are flexible, in which verbs you want to use depends on what's useful to you. Okay, adelante. Let's take a look at some of our practice verbs, and because we've got a small group, we're just going to go on to our colored slides, color-coded, okay? And see if we can fill in some blanks, use some easy stuff, and then maybe create something original. Querer. This is in the E to IE category. And querer is a must-know verb, like poder, to be able to, is a must-know verb. Querer is a must-know verb because it's so high frequency in conversations of people wanting to do things. I want you to plug in an idea of querer with name a thing. Change querer to talk about one person, not yourself. Querer with a thing. Por ejemplo, mi mascota quiere un juguete. My pet wants a toy. Mi mascota quiere un juguete, a toy. Okay, can you talk about somebody else, not yourself, and name what they want?
I can try. Mi esposo quiere un libro sobre cactus. I don't know how to say cactus other than cactus.
Cacto. Sí, un cacto. Okay.
Cactus. Then.
He wants a what with the I didn't catch the word before.
Libro, book.
Oh, libro.
Book about
Un libro de. Okay, and here's a good chunk to know. Because you're talking about cacti in general, like all cacti, you want to know how to grow them, how to not kill them once you've got them in the house, right? We're going to put it into los cactus. Quiere un libro de or sobre, about los cactus. Bien.
So sobre's right, because that's what I use.
Sobre works.
Sobre los cactus.
Sobre los cactus, or just de los cactus. That works also. You have an alternative. Bien. Okay. ¿Qué más? And we're going to plug in a thing, an item, an object.
I had a political one. Donald Trump quiere volver a ser presidente.
Okay, that's part of our B part. Yeah, quiere volver. Sí, quiere ser presidente otra vez. Okay, sí, bien. We can also combine it with an infinitive, so you can use either the A or the B alternative here. Bueno, mi esposo puede oír. I can hear. Mi esposo quiere una bebida. Quiere una bebida. Quiere un vaso de agua. Mi esposo quiere un vaso de agua. Ahora, bien. ¿Qué más?
Mi esposa quiere viajar a Italia.
Viajar a Italia once. So you can see that we use querer with objects, things, and we use querer with doing stuff like viajar. Okay. Quiere viajar a Italia. Quiero viajar a Italia. Bien. Okay. ¿Qué más? Anything else with querer? ¿Sí o no? No. Okay. We can also use it to talk about things people don't want. How do we make this negative? We just inject one little word.
No.
Yeah, we just inject no. Okay. Un ejemplo. Mi hija trabajó todos los días de la semana pasada. My daughter worked every single day of the week last week. It was massive overtime. So if I want to talk about the week that's coming up for her, I might say, mi hija no quiere trabajar horas extras hoy. Mi hija no quiere trabajar horas extras, overtime, horas extras, extra hours, literally. No quiere trabajar horas extras hoy, porque ella trabajó 7 días la semana pasada, because she worked 7 days this last week. Ella no quiere trabajar horas extras hoy. Okay. Bien. ¿Qué más? What other examples? Anything else with querer? ¿Sí o no? ¿No? Ok. Siguiente. Dormir. Con número y horas. We want to combine this. And I want you to change dormir to use it to talk about more than one person. You have 2 options. You can either use the we form, nosotros, or the they form, or the ustedes form, right? Third person and plural.
Niños duermen en camas en el dormitorio arriba.
Okay. And you use that to talk about where they're sleeping, right? See, el dormitorio arriba, upstairs. Okay, vale. Los niños duermen. Bien. ¿Qué más? Any others? ¿O no? O siguiente. Empezar. What example do you have to use empezar and then name an action like an event? Change empezar to say some event is starting at a certain time. Okay, and at a certain time is going to be a la if it's if it's the 1 o'clock hour, but then it would have to be a las if it's more than 1 o'clock. So I'm changing that on our slide here a little bit. Bien. Okay.
Los partidos de los D-backs empiezan a las 6:30.
Bueno, fantástico. Los partidos empiezan, los partidos de béisbol, los partidos de fútbol. Okay, you can inject any sport in there. Los partidos de béisbol empiezan a las 6. Bien. If you're talking about playoff games, playoff games are happening in certain sports almost always, right? Los torneos, the tournaments. Yeah, if they're playoff games, they're tournaments. Los torneos empiezan a las 8, at 8, por ejemplo. Okay? Otra idea.
La fiesta de graduación empieza el mediodía. Is that right? Is it empieza fiesta de graduación? Empieza el mediodía.
Al mediodía. A little, yes. Mediodía means noon, right? And that's a little change, right? Normally when we have time, we'll say a la 1 for 1 o'clock hour, but anything higher than 1 goes into a las 2, a las 3, a las 4, etc. Okay, but we have a special little structure if you use mediodía. Mediodía is just that word. Yeah. So if something starts at noon, you can say it as a las 12, but you can also say it as al, and then it's got to be al because that's a special word. Al mediodía. And then it means 12 o'clock noon as opposed to midnight, right? Al mediodía. Bien, perfecto, perfecto. Mi programa, por ejemplo, mi programa favorita. Mi programa favorito, perdón, mi programa favorito empieza a las 7 de la tarde. Mi programa favorito empieza a las 7 de la tarde. ¿Ok? Bien. Cerrar. Cerrar. Something closes. Change it to say when your usual supermarket closes.
Mi supermercado, excuse me, generalmente cerrar a las 11 de la noche.
A las 11 de la noche. Cierra a las 11 de la noche. ¿Bien? ¿Sí? Por ejemplo, Sprouts, es mi supermercado favorito, cierra a las 8. ¿Bien? Ok. Entender. Siguiente. Entender. Name a thing. Say, oh, name a thing you don't understand. Oh, name a thing you don't understand. Or a thing you do understand. You can make it a sí or a no idea, right? Do or don't. Okay.
Well, no entiendo muchos de los políticos.
Sí. Okay. Bien. Me gusta. Otro ejemplo. No entiendo no entiendo las máquinas. I don't understand machines very well. ¿Sí? No entiendo motores. No entiendo cómo funciona. I don't understand how it works. ¿Sí? No entiendo cómo funcionan los motores. Bien. Bien. Okay. Bueno. Here's another IE. Preferir. Name a thing or an action. And frame a question. Ask your partner what they prefer. So we have to form this into a question. How would we ask, what do you prefer?
¿Qué prefieres?
¿Qué prefieres? And it might just be as simple as ¿qué prefieres? If you're showing them something, right? It might be ¿qué prefieres hacer? Right? ¿Qué prefieres hacer por la mañana? ¿Qué prefieres hacer el fin de semana? What do you prefer to do on the weekend? Right?
¿Qué prefieres comer por la cena?
Sí, exacto. ¿Qué prefieres comer? ¿Qué prefieres beber? Right? What do you prefer to eat? What do you prefer to drink? Anything like that. Okay, let's use perder, to lose a thing. And this will be an IE stem change, E to IE. And you notice that I underlined, except I forgot to do it with poder. We're underlining the vowel that gets a change here. Perder. Talk about what your partner partner or spouse or kids lose from time to time.
Mi esposo pierde cosas en el refrigerador.
Pierde cosas.
Cosas, things,
Sí.
en el
El
refrigerador.
en el refrigerador. Pierde cosas en el refrigerador, ¿sí? Bien, ok. De vez en cuando, from time to time, ¿sí? Mi hija pierde sus llaves. Pierde sus llaves. She loses her keys from time. Mi hija pierde sus llaves de vez en cuando. Bien, ¿sí? Otra cosa con perder. Anything else with perder?
Can I try one?
Sí, sí, claro.
Sí. Amuendo.
A menudo.
Sí. Mi perro pierde su pelota en la piscina.
Pierde su pelota en la piscina. He loses his ball in the pool. Pierde su pelota en la piscina. Fantástico, fantástico. Bien, we'll finish up with these last two. Son las 10 y... No. Oh, no, we've got plenty of time. Perdón. Okay, I'm losing my track of time here. Perder. Otra cosa. Anything else with perder that you want to include? Nada. Okay, siguiente, poder. This is the most powerful one. If I could put 3 or 4 or 5 stars on this, I would do it. Poder is something you need to know. And we almost always combine this with a different infinitive, but that second infinitive never needs to be conjugated. Only poder needs conjugation. Let's use poder to talk about what somebody, one or maybe more people, whoever you want to talk about, can do when it's hot outside.
Cuando hace calor, podemos ir al cine.
Bien, cuando hace calor, podemos ir al cine. Sí, or maybe you want to talk about what you can't do when it's hot outside. Yeah, let's put a can or cannot. Yeah. We'll put both options in there. Okay, ¿qué más con poder? What else with poder?
Personas pueden nadar en el lago cuando hace calor.
Okay, and when you do that, use your las personas. Las personas pueden nadar cuando hace calor. People can swim. And I want to tell you a little note here. Las personas is a great and easy term to use to say people can do something. But it's a little more common, instead of using las personas when you talk about people in general, it's very common to use the term la gente. And la gente, I'll put it in here in our slide. La gente is really like, just like saying las personas, only more common. La gente means people. And it means people in general. Okay, la gente. So really a more common noun to use instead of las personas in that specific example would be la gente. La gente puede nadar. La gente puede nadar cuando hace calor. People can swim when it's hot. La gente is a little more common than las personas. Las personas is often used in books because it's a cognate. It looks like persons. So it's an easy word for us to remember. But la gente is probably more frequent. The one trick with la gente that you need to remember is that it uses a singular verb. Okay, so we'll not use la gente pueden. It'll be la gente puede because it's a singular verb. Even though it's like one of those collectives. It's like saying el equipo. the team, ¿sí? El equipo juega a las 7, the team is playing, yeah? And because, you know, there's more than one person in el equipo, but we use it as a singular noun. So la gente has more than one person in it, but we use it as a singular conjugation, yeah? Bien, okay, volver. Talk about when we, nosotros, use a nosotros form, when we're coming home on Friday.
Nosotros volvemos a casa a las 5 el tarde en viernes.
El viernes, ¿sí? Sí, el viernes. When we say on a day of the week, it just becomes el, not en. Little tweak, but people would totally understand your sentence, even with that one tiny word wrong. It's not a big oops. Sí, volvemos a casa a las 5 el viernes. Perfecto. How about if we want to make it more vague? We're coming home early. ¿Cómo se dice early? I know that's not a specific time. Volvemos a casa. ¿Cómo se dice early? ¿Quién recuerda? Anybody remember? If you don't know a specific like watch kind of time, we can use temprano, early, right? We can use tarde to say late. Okay. Bien. Bueno. Siguiente. Let's look at an O-T-U-E. We're going to do, after we're done with this block, we're going to do a question about these two verbs. I did not put this on purpose in our example, but these are two verbs that are both stem changers that, and actually the other odd thing is recordar and acordarse de both have the same definition. They both mean to remember, but I purposely wanted you to use the easier one. And then when we're done with this block, we'll look at taking that a step up to a little harder step. And I'll tell you why we're going to talk about that. But just using recordar, talk about what you can't remember.
Just to preface my response by how this came about, it's 15-second story. So I asked my wife, what don't I remember? And she said, you don't remember where things are in the pantry.
Ah.
So now let me read this and you'll see why I told you that.
Okay.
No recuerdo dónde están mis cosas en la despensa.
Dispensa, sí.
Despensa.
Sí.
Porque mi esposa las mueve.
Porque mi esposa las mueve. My wife moves them around. Oh, sí. Sí, culpable, guilty. Yo también soy culpable. I am guilty of that too, sí. No recuerdo. Por ejemplo, muchas veces no recuerdo dónde están las tijeras. Tijeras para cortar papel, ¿sí? Muchas veces no recuerdo dónde están las tijeras porque mis hijos las mueven. My kids move them around. Sí, ay, bien, perfecto. ¿Qué más? Otro ejemplo. Yo no recuerdo bien los números de teléfono. I don't remember phone numbers. Por lo general, no recuerdo los números de teléfono. Es así. Ok. Bien.
No, go ahead, Linda.
No, that's okay, Carrie, go ahead.
No recuerdo dónde dejé mi coche.
I don't remember where I left my car. Sí. En cuando aparcas, when you park, cuando estacionas. Sí, no recuerdo dónde está, dónde dejé, where I left. But you can frame that if you don't know how to say where I left, to dónde está. No recuerdo dónde está mi coche. Sí, perfecto, perfecto. ¿Qué más?
No recuerdo las palabras de español para speak more slowly, please.
Sí, no recuerdo todo el vocabulario en español. Sí, es común. That's common. That's
Oh, wait.
common.
So what should I have said instead of las palabras?
Las palabras seis.
Okay.
Bien, perfecto, bien, good. There are many ways you can say that, ¿sí? El vocabulario, las palabras, the words, sí. No recuerdo las palabras en español. No recuerdo todas las palabras que necesito. I don't remember all the words that I need. Por ejemplo. Perfecto. Ok. Encontrar. Encontrar. And when we're done with this block, we're going to look at both of these verbs separately with a little twist. Okay, and you'll see why. Encontrar means to find something. Okay, ask what you find in the supermarket. Well, talk about anything with encontrar.
Well, for the supermarket. And encuentras buen pescado en el super?
Bien. Encuentras buen pescado? Do you find good fish or seafood? Sí. En el super, magnífico. Encuentras frutas frescas o cerezas frescas, fresh cherries, frutas frescas, fresh fruit, en el super. Bien. Ok. Vale. Ok. Contar. Contar. And contar, it's going to get an O to UE. And contar is what is used when somebody needs to tell you something that's kind of involved. Like, por ejemplo, decir means to tell. Let's say you just saw some news that came up on your, you got an alert on your phone about something. Te digo las noticias. I'll tell you the news. Te digo las noticias. But contar would be used more when you're telling quite a large chunk of information. Por ejemplo, and I'll give you my example with this. Te cuento lo que pasó esta mañana. I'll tell you what happened this morning. That means probably there are like a bunch of things that happen in sequence, 2 or 3. And that's when we use contar. Te cuento todo. I'll tell you about all of it. Te cuento todo. And the te just tells who I'm telling it to. I'm telling it to you. Te cuento, not tu cuento, but te cuento. Okay. Otra idea con te cuento.
Te cuento la historia de mi vida.
Perfecto. Te cuento la historia de mi vida. I'll tell you the story of my life. Sí. Perfecto.
Te cuento mi viaje a Australia hace 35 años.
Perfecto. Te cuento de mi viaje a Australia. I'll tell you about my trip. Perfecto. Bien. Because that's kind of a related thing, an involved thing, right? You're going to plug in a bunch of different little events. Perfecto. Te cuento, por ejemplo, te cuento te cuento de mi caminata en las montañas. I'll tell you about my hike in the mountains. probably eventful. So, te cuento, te cuento. Okay, we're going to take a little sidebar, a little side trip here. And I'm going to do the easy one first. Encontrar. I'm going to give myself some space here. Encontrar. Be aware that this verb encontrar is not only used to talk about stuff you find, or maybe people, but more usually stuff, you know, oh, I found this great bargain at the store. This is also used as what we call a reflexive, and we're going to revisit this idea of reflexives later this summer as well. But as a little preview, this verb encontrar is used this way, encontrarse, as a reflexive, and it's used to ask as an equivalent to ¿Cómo estás? How are you? But there's a little twist, and the twist comes in this same part. That means reflexive. So I'm going to show you what that chunk will sound like if instead of saying, ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Somebody asks, how are you this way? ¿Cómo te encuentras? Literally, how do you find yourself? How do you find yourself? And notice I need two little extra pieces here. I need both a little pronoun. I cannot just say, ¿Cómo encuentras? How do you find? It's ¿Cómo te encuentras? How do you find yourself? But what they're really asking you is the exact same question as ¿Cómo estás? How are you? Yeah, bien. And the way, if somebody asks you, ¿Cómo estás? Instead, because they felt like it, really, literally, no other good reason yet isn't out of the blue, they felt like saying it differently. ¿Cómo te encuentras? We would answer this with, instead of yo, I can't do that. I have to say, me encuentro bien. I'm pretty good. Me encuentro bien. I'm fine. Right? Me encuentro bien. Gracias. Me encuentro bien. Gracias. Bien? So be aware that if somebody asks you, ¿Cómo te encuentras? They're asking you the exact same question as ¿Cómo estás? So this is something in, colloquial expression is kind of a frequent thing. Just know they're asking you, ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te encuentras? But the way you might answer it, and even if somebody asks, ¿Cómo estás? With that verb, you can respond with this, me encuentro bien. I find myself well today. Sounds a little odd, maybe, if you translate it literally in English, but that's why it doesn't make sense literally in English, right? Me encuentro bien. But my point being, you may hear people using this UE stem change to talk about how they feel. But notice, if they do that, they're also going to need to, because this is a special kind of verb, a special expression, if you will. They need to use that me word in front of that verb encuentro as well. Okay, so that's our one little sidebar. Here's our second little sidebar. There are two verbs that mean to remember. And they're pretty equivalent. I'm not going to go into all the down and dirty because there are minor differences. We're going to see a little difference. Well, we're going to see a little difference right now. I'm going to take this off our stop share and show you a short video. And you're going to get this short video. I've got to flip my screens here so that I can show video. This shows you the down and dirty difference, but we'll talk about it soon. The reason I gave you recordar to use as your practice is that it is the easier one to use. But the sad truth is The other verb, acordarse de, is, I think, en mi opinión, es más común. I think you actually hear the other one a little more frequently. So, vale la pena. It's worth the effort to take a look at this. We're going to take a look at a shorty of how this is used.
Difference between acordarse and recordar both mean to remember. Acordarse needs de. So, for example, me acuerdo cada día de mi padre.
Can you make it
Ah.
louder?
Ooh, can I make that louder? Ooh. That is a pretty soft one, isn't it?
Mhm.
Okay, so let me stop this. I'll send this to you so you can make it. I'm not able to make this much louder here. Ooh. Let's see if this will, let me try to bump it up here.
Do you know the difference between acordarse and recordar?
A little bit.
Both mean to remember.
Both mean to remember. Now, there are some subtle differences, which we'll maybe talk about another time, but not right away today. But just notice that what you need to know right now is the pattern. But they're both stem changers, and they're both the same kind of stem changer, a UE.
Acordarse needs de. So, for example, me acuerdo cada día de mi padre.
Me acuerdo cada día de mi padre. Me acuerdo cada día de mi padre. I remember my father every day. If, for example, your father is no longer with you, for whatever reason, okay? But notice it's a more complicated verb to use because you need me, because it's reflexive. Some of you may or may not know that. What this means is it's a little pronoun that must be used together with this kind of verb, with this specific verb. So in other words, it won't be a yo, but it'll be a me. Me acuerdo, the form in the yo form. And not only do you need me acuerdo, but you need this little word de. So it is a more complicated verb to use than recordar. I'm going to let her show you the other same idea with recordar. Me acuerdo cada día de mi padre, and I have to have the de.
Me acuerdo cada día de mi padre. For example, no recuerdo su nombre.
I don't remember his name. No recuerdo su nombre. Recuerdo is easier to formulate in Spanish for the beginner because all you have to remember is that it's a stem changer. Recuerdo, recuerdo, and it looks like record, so it's easy for us to remember the meaning of the word, you know? It's got a lot of good things going for it. But this other sentence is also equally correct, and to be very honest with you, I think this verb number 2 is a little more common. No me acuerdo de su nombre. Okay, it is probably harder for you to equate the definition of acordarse, to remember. Recordar, people have an easy time remembering it, the definition as remember, but the second one is super, super, super common. No me acuerdo de su nombre. Both of these mean I don't remember his name. No recuerdo su nombre. No me acuerdo de su nombre. You need more little words together with that second verb. So it winds up being a little more complicated.
No recuerdo su nombre. No me acuerdo de su nombre.
In Spanish, if you use this combination on the second verb, which sadly is super, super, super common, people like this verb, you need to remember that 3 words must hang together. So recuerdo only needs that one word. Easier if you got to grab a fast word. But when people are talking at you, you will often hear that second alternative for remember, and that needs 3 words together, a little pronoun, either the word me or te or se or nos, and the verb, and it needs that word de. And that, for those of us who are English speakers, is a it's a trifecta, if you would. It's a 3-word combo that they've got to hang together there. No me acuerdo de su nombre.
No me acuerdo de su nombre.
Okay, so I'll send you that little shorty so you can listen to it a bunch of times. And we'll talk another day, not today, about some subtle differences between those, because it can be important, but it isn't important for you today. Okay, bien. All right, so let me go back to our examples. Bien, we'll come back to this maybe next week as a little opener, that these are really equivalents, but this is harder to use, even though you will hear people use it a lot, but it needs a 3-word combo. So me acuerdo de, and then you name a thing or a person. Te acuerdas de, and you have a thing or a person. Se, if you talk about one person or anything third person, él es a usted or ellos es a ustedes. It'll use the word se in either one. Se acuerda or se acuerdan de. But you need that word de to be understood, because if you skip that word de, it will sound funny to them and they will skip a beat and kind of be thinking about what is that person saying. Okay, let's go.
Marilyn?
Sí, bien.
Pregunta. So I noticed in the one example she gave, it was me acuerdo cada día de mi padre.
Sí.
So, and that's where I often get things like just the order of things mixed
Order
up.
of words.
The day came not right away, but later. So maybe next week you can help with that also.
Well, I'll talk about that too. Es buena pregunta. That's a good question. We'll talk about that next week. Why, when is that word order important? That's a great question. We will plug that in next week. Gracias. Thank you. Okay, so that will be our opener topic for next week, and we'll show you a bunch of examples with that. Let's take a look at our 3 last examples before we leave real quickly here. Jugar and a sport. And do know, sometimes I hear people from different countries. Sometimes, I was always taught you must have this word after the verb jugar to talk about the sport. But I hear people from different countries sometimes dropping that word So just know that may go different ways depending on the region a person lives in. Okay, let's use jugar to talk about someone and the sport that he or she plays. And well, you might add something to it. Let's take out the add what to it for now, but let's just talk about who plays a certain sports. So, por ejemplo, LeBron James juega al baloncesto. LeBron James plays basketball. Okay, otra idea, another idea with jugar.
Mi amiga juega a pepinillo todos los miércoles.
Juega
A pepinillo, pickleball.
Oh, pickleball. I don't really know if pickleball has a formal name in Spanish yet or not.
Okay.
See, it may just be pickleball. I don't know. No sé. I'll see if I can look that up this week. Pickleball is kind of a new-ish sport. Yeah, relatively speaking. Okay, bien. Bueno, otra idea. You talk about a famous person who plays a sport too. Otro ejemplo. Nada aquí.
Los equipos de fútbol americano juegan los domingos.
Sí, juegan los domingos. They play on Sundays. Juegan los domingos. Football players, they play that. Sí, los equipos de béisbol juegan todos los días de la semana. Sí, juegan los lunes, juegan los martes, juegan los sábados, juegan los viernes. sí, así. Pero los equipos de fútbol americano, football players, sí, juegan los domingos, generalmente, sí, profesionales. Okay, devolver. We'll talk about returning an object to another person, or maybe to a place. Volver is a person coming back to a location, but devolver, we name a thing. We use devolver to talk about what you might return to a store, or what you might return because somebody loaned it to you. So anybody got an example of devolver? We'll use it just like volver. We'll just put a de in front of it and we attach it because it's all one word. Any idea with devolver?
I have one. Devuelvo los libros a la biblioteca cuando vencen. When they're due. Vencien.
Oh, okay. Sí. Bien, sí. And make it easy, just drop that last part for yourself. And I only say this because I'm running out of time. Sí, devuelvo los libros a la biblioteca es un ejemplo perfecto. That is a perfect example. Devuelvo los libros a la biblioteca. Sí, bien. If one of my kids borrows a sweatshirt from me, yeah, un sudadora, sudadora. Sí, mi hija devuelve la sudadora. My daughter returns the sweatshirt if I loan it to her, right? Bien. Let's take one more because I'm running a little bit over and some people might have appointments and things they've got to move on to for their day. Let's use me duele with a part of the body, or if you have a couple of things like both your eyes or both your knees or both your elbow, both your hands. Yeah. If something hurts because you've got something arthritic. Yeah. It might be duelen, right? All the twosies parts of your bodies. Cuando hago ejercicio and tell what hurts. When I exercise, cuando hago ejercicio.
Cuando hago ejercicio me duelo el hombro.
El hombro. El hombro. Me duele. And it won't be me duelo. This is an important thing because this is one of the, this is a little odd. You say the shoulder does the hurting. Me duele el hombro. My shoulder causes pain to me is what you're really saying. Me duele el hombro. So we don't use it as me duelo, right? The shoulder is the thing that is causing hurt. So we conjugate it, duele according to hombro, right? Hombro. Me duele el hombro. Cuando yo hago ejercicio, me duelen las rodillas. When I exercise, my knees hurt a little. Cuando hago ejercicio, me duelen las rodillas. Me duelen, because it's more than one knee. Me duelen las rodillas. ¿Algo más? Anything else? With doler? Oh, no. No? Okay. Bien. Vale. I am going to I will send you that little snippet on only one example with acordarse versus recordar, and we'll come back to that. And we will plug in, gracias, Carrie, that little question of when I need to add more information, about like when I remember this. Why do the words flip around and how do I know where they go? I'll come back with some tips for you there. That whole word order. When we have more complicated things we want to express, like I clean my house every day, or, you just want to talk about like frequency words. How do we plug that in? How do we plug those words in the right order? Is there a right order or does it not matter? And that may vary a little bit, but we'll come back and talk about that next week. Bien, you're going to have a little video also to listen to, and I want you to listen for a couple of stem changers. Take some little notes. It is going to be a video about, I'm just going to preview so that you know the topic. But I will not play it now because it's an easy to understand video. It is a video about tapas. Tapas are, I could say that tapas are hors d'oeuvres technically, because it's probably what we would call them. Tapas are little munchy things that you eat that are not a full meal. We might call them hors d'oeuvres, yeah? And she's going to talk about different types of specific tapas, but she's going to use a couple of little stem changing verbs. So maybe make a note of at least two. I think there might be only two, but we'll see how many. I have to re-listen to the whole thing myself again. Bien. And I will give you a couple of other some more prompts using stem changers to use for next week. Bien, to come back and do conversation. Todo bien? All good? See, I'm going to pick ones that I think are kind of high frequency and why you might hear them or when you might hear them. Okay, todo bien. Espero que tengan muy buena semana. I hope you have a very good week. Sí, que todo vaya bien. Sí, hasta luego. Sí, y nos vemos muy pronto. See you guys all really, really soon.